Hi, I'm Kara, mom of three, pediatric sleep expert, certified parenting coach, and founder of Well Rested Mama. Welcome to the Unswaddled podcast. Tune in every other week as we chat about baby and toddler sleep solutions, overcoming parenting challenges, and all things messy motherhood. Welcome to this week's episode of Well Rested Mama Unswaddled. This week we are talking about short naps, which is a topic that I think will never disappear. I think it's something that everyone struggles with daily. And I also feel like it is the most anxiety inducing part of our little ones and their sleep. So we wanted to dive into this, break it apart for you. My goal for this episode is to help you understand first that short naps are normal, especially 5 months and younger. And second, what you can do during those days that seem hectic or naps are never going as planned in order to promote that good night's sleep, because our daytime sleep affects our nighttime sleep. So the better that your little one's sleeping during the day, the better they're going to sleep at night, which does put a little bit of pressure on that daytime sleep, but not too much, because we're going to teach you how to navigate those days so that you can get those good night sleeps no matter what happens during the day. First things first is it is completely normal that your little one is taking short naps. And that is going to be the case, I would say, up until really that 5-month mark, maybe a little bit older, but typically under the age of 5 months, those cat naps are so normal. And the reason for that is your little one is going through a sleep cycle, okay? And a sleep cycle is basically, just think of the entire nap, okay? Whether your goal is an hour and a half, 2 hours, they're not sleeping that full time, no matter what, no matter how old they are, no matter how good they are at sleeping, independent sleeper or not, contact sleeper, it doesn't matter. They are always going to go through that entire cycle. And what that's essentially looking like is they're taking time to fall asleep, okay? And then that time is passing. They're starting to drift off. They're getting into that deeper sleep. Then they're in that like really heavy sleep where you can transition them and they're not going to wake up. And then all of a sudden they're starting to get lighter again. And then they're going to wake up and that sleep cycle is going to end. And that sleep cycle is ending every 40 to 50 minutes. So when you are stuck in that 40 to 50 minute nap zone that they're constantly waking, that's what's happening. The ultimate issue is going to be, are they able to connect sleep cycles and go into that next sleep cycle? So a long nap consists of more than one sleep cycle. And a baby is only capable of doing that if they have the ability to put themselves back to sleep during that sleep cycle shift. So an independent sleeper, for example, is going to put themselves to sleep at the beginning of that nap, and then they're going to put themselves back to sleep again during that sleep cycle shift. It can take anywhere, I would say, from like 10 to 20 minutes, and you want to give them that time to go back into that next sleep cycle, but they're only going to do that independently if they started the nap on their own, okay? Now, let's say you are a contact napper, right? You're rocking your baby to sleep, you're holding them the whole time. Even if you're not holding them the whole time, let's say you're getting them to sleep, you're putting them down, you're transitioning them successfully, and they stay asleep. At that sleep cycle shift, they're going to wake up, which is completely normal. The problem with that is that they're looking for that process that they had at the beginning of that nap. So if they were rocked to sleep at the beginning of the nap, they need rocked back to sleep during that sleep cycle shift. And that's how you're going to get those naps to connect. Now, during the day, obviously, like I mentioned, the better they sleep during the day, the better they sleep at night. And what I mean by that is avoiding overtiredness. So regardless of whether your little one takes amazing naps, whether they take short naps, it's totally fine. Your number one job is avoiding overtiredness throughout that day so that the nighttime sleep is able to stay intact, and you're going to have less night wakings. You're not going to have those false starts at bedtime, which is anytime they wake up, let's say before midnight, right? Or you put them down for bed at 7, they fall asleep, 8:45, they're back awake, okay? That is a false start. And those things are caused by overtiredness during the day. So that is what we want to avoid by helping those naps get longer, whether they are independent or they are with your help. Either way is totally fine. We just want you to understand what is happening during those naps, why they're waking after that first sleep cycle, and why they might not be going back to sleep. So now that we understand why your little one's waking, why those short naps are happening, we want to figure out what we can do to make those situations better. Okay. So first things first, and this is something that everybody is capable of doing, is optimizing the sleep environment. Okay. And you guys know that I am a firm believer in a dark room. The AC has to be turned down low. Okay. Whether they're in a swaddle, in a sleep sack, and the white noise, all of those things are going to come together and just help them sleep better. Like I always tell people, I want you to think about if you were going to take a nap. Okay. And you aren't a good napper, because I don't know about you. Like would love to be able to just fall asleep and hit the mattress and take a nap during the day. But like, that's not ever going to happen, especially if I am on the couch or the lights are on or I can hear everyone screaming. Like, yes, I'm tired. And yes, I would love to take a nap, but it's just not going to happen. So if Jeff were going to put me in a dark room by myself, that was essentially, I couldn't see anybody. I had white noise on. I couldn't hear anyone yelling at me or yelling for me. And I was in a cold room with like my favorite cozy earth bedding. Like, yeah, I would probably have a better chance of falling asleep. We want to set them up for that. We cannot expect them to take a nap during the day when the environment isn't ideal. And of course, there are situations, okay, you're on the go, or they go to daycare. Like all of those things I understand happen, and it's just something that we can't control. And yes, they will fall asleep on the go, but that nap, those sleep cycles are not going to connect during that sleep cycle shift. So in order for that to happen, we want to be, if we're home, okay, and you're in a situation where you can give them their ideal sleep environment, we want to make sure that they are set up for success. We want to make sure that room is dark. So when they wake up during that sleep cycle shift and they're looking around the room, nothing's distracting them to go back or to stay awake. I mean, we want them going back to sleep. So checking off all those boxes are so simple. It's so easy. It's something that you literally can go out, take care of, get everything that you need and make it happen. Then we can start to focus on, okay, we have all that set up. Now what can we do to get these naps to lengthen a little bit, right? So that's going to be where you come into play if your little one is not quite an independent sleeper, because they're going to need your help. So you are assisting them during that sleep cycle shift. You are allowed to go back into the room and put them back to sleep, just how you did it at the beginning of that nap. And that all still counts as the same nap. And doing that is avoiding that overtiredness during the day that's going to mess up your bedtime later on in the night. Another thing I want you to keep in mind is if you don't have an independent sleeper, they are going to need that assistance during that sleep cycle shift, but don't be afraid to give them that time. See what they do. If you're rushing in at every sound, they're never going to have the opportunity to do it by themselves, right? Because they're waking up, they're making a sound, and you're in there and you're getting it back to sleep. Or you're in there right away and you're doing stimulation and they're waking up and now they're really not going to go back to sleep. So don't be afraid to give them time. Like I said, it can take 10 to 20 minutes for them to go back into that second sleep cycle. And if they're laying there and they're content and they're looking around, it's a dark room, they can't see anything, hold back. Like, don't rush in there. They don't need your help yet. You want to wait until they're actually crying out for you for that assistance before you're going in. We don't want them to think that it's time to get up. Especially if you have an independent sleeper, you 100% want to give them that time because you know that they can do it. They did it at the beginning of the nap, so we want them to do it again during that sleep cycle shift. And that's going to be where you start to see those sleep cycles connect. And now all of a sudden your 40-minute nap went to an hour and a half, okay? Or whatever your schedule is that you're aiming for, whatever wake windows you're using, that is what your goal is every single time, whether you're assisting them or not. Touching on the wake windows a little bit, this is where it can get super confusing. And to be honest, I know that this is like annoying, right? Like you feel like you're doing math all day, but I promise you, once you get down your like little cheat sheet for your little one and the age and where they're at, it is going to make your life so much easier. So wake windows, okay? During the day, obviously your little one's awake, they're taking a nap. They're awake, they're taking a nap. The time that they are awake is considered their wake window. And we have to focus on those, okay? Like when people don't pay attention to wake windows, the day just becomes a disaster, and that overtiredness is just stacking until shit just hits the fan. And like it's you have so much control over that. It's just so much easier when you kind of focus on that and realize, okay, this is how long that they need to be awake between each nap. However, that is only if they are taking their naps. And if they're not taking their naps, we have to change the wake window. So the biggest thing first is that you have to identify what your little one's wake window is, okay? They wake up in the morning. What is their full wake window? That wake window is what you're sticking to. That's your wake window during the day, okay? Now, that wake window is only appropriate if your little one is hitting restorative sleep during those naps. So what I mean by that is if your little one is sleeping over an hour and 15 minutes, they're hitting restorative sleep, they've slept long enough, they can handle that full wake window during the day after that nap, which is amazing, right? That's exactly what we want. But the reality is like that might not happen every single time. So when that doesn't happen, okay, you put them down, they woke up after that first sleep cycle, you could not get them back to sleep. They did not hit restorative sleep. They only slept 40 minutes. You gave it your all, wide awake, not happening. That's fine. You're getting them up, but you're no longer doing that next wake window. You have to shorten it by 30 minutes. And by doing that, you're avoiding that overtiredness that's going to allow them to have a better chance for that next nap without them losing their mind, okay? When you keep them awake for that full wake window after a short nap, you're going to start to see those naps get shorter and shorter as the day progresses, which is a nightmare, okay? That is the ultimate recipe for an overtired baby who's going to fight bedtime, have those false starts, increase nighttime wakings, and they're going to wake up early in the morning. And we want to avoid that as much as we can. Now, I know that is all wonderful information, right? But if you're trying to navigate the day, like how do you do it? Like what is this all going to look like? If you have a cat napper, right? They're not hitting restorative sleep. You cannot get them back to sleep. Number one, your wake windows might be off, okay? But number two, if your wake windows are spot on, you are following it for the age, they're just not doing it, you have to do the shorter wake windows every day, which is going to give you more naps in your day, which is totally fine. I always have people come to me and it's like, well, if I do that, they're going to take 4 naps and Google tells me that they can only take 3 naps. And it's like, that's okay. Google isn't taking into consideration how long they're sleeping. Same with the Huckleberry app. It's not adjusting things for you. It's sticking to wake windows, which is amazing, but it's not adjusting based on the duration of those naps. So leading up to bedtime, you have to make those adjustments in order to keep everything moving in the right direction. Now, bedtime is a little bit different, okay? And this is where it can get a little bit confusing, but I promise, once you get the hang of it, you're gonna know exactly what to do. The wake window before bed, you're not only subtracting 30 minutes, okay? You're most likely going down a full hour. So what I mean by that is, let's say, for example, your little one's full wake window during the day is 2 hours, okay? That's after restorative sleep, amazing naps, wonderful. Now, let's say they don't take a long nap, okay? You're going down to an hour and a half, right? Because they did not hit restorative sleep. We considered that a cat nap. We've subtracted 30 minutes from that wake window. That is only during the day. Once you get to that last nap before bed, if your last nap is a cat nap and your full wake window is 2 hours, you're only doing 1 hour before bed. You're not doing an hour and a half, which is what you would do during the day, okay? And the reason for that is the sleep pressure changes. We're getting ready for bed. We're landing at an ideal bedtime, and going over that hour is going to cause that early morning waking, which is between 4 to 6 a.m., and they never go back to sleep, okay? So if you're seeing early morning wakings like that, and you're like, I'm adjusting wake windows, I'm doing it all, I want you to look at that last wake window before bed, because I can almost promise you that it's too long, okay? And that's what's causing that. So those wake windows before bed are a little bit different, nothing crazy. You're just thinking of it as like a full hour versus subtracting the 30 minutes that you're doing during the day to avoid that overtiredness. Now, everything that I just said about the wake windows and adjusting and everything like that is great information, right? If you're home with your baby. If you're not home with your baby and your baby's at daycare, all that I want you to do is ask for a log. Ask them what that day looked like so you can see what the naps looked like, what the feedings looked like, and what those wake windows looked like. So maybe you can get a better idea of, hey, they kept, her awake too long after her second nap, or she's been awake since 3:00 and it's 5:00. Like, what do I do? That is where you can take that information and apply the wake window adjusting to the rest of your day. And what I mean by that is you pick your baby up, okay? You have your whole log and you're like, shit, this is not good, right? Like, my baby hasn't slept all day. Like, what do I do? Your best case scenario, and of course, this depends on the time that the last nap ended and how long it was, but you want to ask yourself, can I fit in a cat nap, which is an hour or less, and a 1 hour wake window, right? Because we're still talking about under 5 months. Or do I not have time for that? It's 5:30. I don't have time for that. Put him to bed at 6. Okay. You have to just look at what happened during the day. Do you have time for a cat nap and a shorter wake window? Do you have time for a full nap and a full wake window? That's going to be where you choose your bedtime and how you manipulate that day from pickup until bed. Okay. You don't have control over what's happening during the day. You can offer advice. You can give them a cheat sheet, write it down, right? Restorative sleep, 2 hours is awake. Non-restorative, an hour and a half is awake. Whatever you need to do. Maybe they message you all day. Maybe it's a nanny, or maybe it's a home, it's a different situation that they're talking to you. You can feed them that information. But if you can't, that's totally fine. All you need to do is get what happened during the day, and then you take control from that point on and help avoid that overtiredness. Doing that in that afternoon is going to save the nighttime sleep. Just because whatever happened during the bulk of that day wasn't ideal doesn't mean that you're screwed and your life's over and the baby's going to be awake all night long, okay? Once your little one crosses over that 5-month mark, okay, you've been working on independent sleep at night. Now you are like free reign. You are allowed to start to focus on that daytime sleep, tackle those naps, okay? The biggest thing here is that, number one, if you have already taught independent sleep, you know how quickly and how easily that came to your little one, right? Like, everyone is so surprised at how quickly those nights come together. I don't want you to be discouraged when the nap training is not looking the same, okay? This is a very common, it's a defeat. You feel, we get an email or, someone is so frustrated that, they learned how to sleep through the night in 3 days and I've been nap training for 5 days and it's just a disaster. Nap training takes so long and it takes so much patience, and you have to give your little one grace because they process day and night differently. So teaching them at night is 100 times easier. That's why we start with night training. That's why we allow you to contact nap during the day when we're focusing on night, okay? They completely process them differently. So it doesn't matter what you're doing during the day or what you're doing at night. They do not have to be the same. They can be, but they don't have to be. So that's why, some people will notice that their babies are perfect sleepers at daycare with their nanny, but they're not, at home or at night. And that's just because they've identified a routine and a process with who they're with, where they are, and they've had it in place for a long time that they have obtained that information. So when you're teaching that from the start, it's not going to be easy and it's going to take time. I always tell people, like, you have to give it your all for 2 to 3 weeks, which I know sounds like forever, but you are working on during the day, okay? Daytime sleep, they don't want to sleep. Like, no kids, right? Like, they're during the day, there's stimulation, their bodies, have awake time and playtime and feeding times. Like, you are setting their internal clock. You're getting so many things in order that it just takes time, right? Like, think about if you got up for work every day at 6 a.m. and then you lost your job. Like, your body's going to wake up at 6 a.m. for a little bit, but then it'll change, right? Like, you got a new job and you don't have to wake up till 7. Like, you shift and you make that happen. That is the same thing, okay? We're getting their bodies on a schedule. We're teaching them how to sleep during the day. Now, once they are past that 5-month mark and you are deciding to nap train, you are sticking to a set schedule, okay? You're no longer manipulating wake windows. You are using your sleep training technique from the start of that scheduled nap until the end of that scheduled nap. And no matter what happens during that time frame, we will have you stick to that set wake window and get to that next nap and repeat that sleep training process again throughout that entire schedule during the day. So this means that the morning wake up time is the same, the nap times are the same, and the bedtime is the same. And that's going to be where you start to see everything come together because their bodies are learning that new schedule. So I want you to keep in mind that as you are implementing nap training, okay, you're sticking to that set schedule, you have to be implementing that sleep training technique during that entire scheduled nap. So when it comes to that, you need to really make sure that you're picking something that you're comfortable with, okay? Not something that your best friend did, not something that your mom's telling you to do, or something like you have to feel good about it. You have to be comfortable with it because you have to implement it 100% correctly and consistently the whole time, okay? And what I mean by that is the wake up time's the same, the nap time's the same, the bedtime is the same. You're implementing that sleep training throughout the entire day. And that's where that consistency is so important because you're teaching them that set schedule. You're teaching their body when to be awake, when to sleep, but you're also doing that independent sleep training at the same time. So it's really important that you're confident in what you're doing, you're comfortable in what you're doing so that you can give it your all so that they are able to learn as quickly as possible. When it comes to sleep training during the day, you have to be sure that you are sleep training for the correct schedule, okay? If sleep training's been happening, you've been doing it, you're on week 3 and nothing is falling into place, you might have the wrong schedule. And that's where you really need to zone in on that day. What are the wake windows? How old are they? What is the sleep looking like? Is bedtime easy? Is it hard? Are they waking up early? What is middle of the night looking like? If you have done independent sleep and your baby's consistently been sleeping through the night and then nap training comes along and all of that's going to shit basically, that schedule might be coming to play. And it's so important that you are doing this the right schedule. Otherwise, you're kind of wasting your time in a sense. So a couple things that you want to look for are how quickly your baby's falling asleep, okay? If they are hitting the mattress and falling asleep, that's too late, okay? They're too tired. We want it to take 10 to 15 minutes, I would say, for them to fall asleep for that nap. If you are 1 minute in and you're like, oh my God, amazing, they fell asleep so fast. Yes, it's amazing that they did it. However, it was too soon. They were way too overtired, and you're most likely going to see that nap ends after 20 to 30 minutes. If it's taking a really long time, okay, let's say you have been implementing sleep training for a while and they're still taking over an hour, let's not even say over an hour, over 40 minutes to fall asleep, you're not seeing that time decrease with the training, the wake window might be too short, okay? You really want to make sure that the naps are in the sweet spot, it's age appropriate, it's right for them so that you're setting them up for success when it comes to falling asleep during that appropriate window that we want to see them falling asleep in. If this all sounds so crazy and impossible, we can help you, okay? Our number one thing that we do is get information from you and figure out what your baby needs, what changes need to be made, and what schedule they need to be on. We take all the guesswork out of that. We will do it for you, give you an exact schedule that we want you to follow, and we will help you implement all the sleep training to kind of take away the stress and the anxiety that this can bring. Because the reality is, it's hard, you're tired, especially if you've been doing it for so long and you're not seeing those results. Let us help you, and we are here to do the hard work for you. Tune in next episode because we are going to dive into the transition from the crib to the bed, which we just want to save you. We want to protect you from doing it too soon, and we also want to help you if you're in that spot and you need to know what to do, how to do it, or you haven't done it yet, and we can prepare you for when you are ready.